Hello friends, welcome to National Resource Center, Department of Mass Communication and Journalism, Tezpur University. I am Dr. Junali Deka. We will be talking on the scope of science communication and emerging research opportunities in transferring scientific temperament and understanding. It has been said that science communication has been understood, or rather misunderstood, to be a more technical and scientific course. These days, science communication is accepted more crucial for imparting knowledge in terms of women, children, water, hygiene and sanitation. However, we all communicate science in our everyday life in a different way. The lecture highlights on the need to understand the issues related to water, sanitation, health and hygiene, that is mainly health communication, but covers the umbrella term science communication. The practice has been so far to inform, educate and generate awareness among the common people to adopt scientific temperament. In order to do so, it is important to create a scientific attitude and environment, and it is also necessary to understand the cultural, social and economic status of the community that one is dealing with. If we have to see the learning outcome of the course aims to give an overview of the areas where science communication has become an integral part of communication. It also plays or draws attention towards the possible emerging research areas in the field of science communication. Traditional society like India, which is a victim of incurable and infectious diseases like superstitious beliefs and religious dogma, are a few that fails to be cured by the scientific approaches. There is a thin line between scientific temperament haves and have-nots. It is not only the generation of the scientific attitude, but also to understand and develop as a practice to look things logically and rationally. It has been realized that communicating science among the non-science participants is stimulating. There is an attempt to induce various approaches to instill scientific temper among the various communities. The most preferred method of participation has been identified are focus group discussion, interviews, self-reflexive approaches. The use of traditional media plays a vital role in reaching to the grassroots. However, it does not deny the fact that emerging technology like mobile phones, social media, apps, they cannot reach them. While dealing with the community people, it is required to understand their socio-cultural and political system so that suitable method could be applied to make them aware of eco-media challenges and problems. To measure people's access to knowledge and information, and there is a need of a well-designed and effective science communication initiative. As researcher and academician, our prime objective is to disseminate knowledge to specified and identified section of the society due to limitations in terms of reach, access and affordability. Meanwhile, the same knowledge can be transferred to the other groups of population who can avail it in their own language, social and cultural structure and traditional practices. Hence, it is the responsibility of social scientists to reach the unidentified learners beyond the wall boundaries in developing the scientific approach. The research approach is to informalize and innovate ways of connecting to nature and looks for solutions which are sustainable in nature. In the process of sharing scientific attitude, there is a need of generation of awareness and capacity building. In designing the messages, one needs to be careful in terms of the language, the intended audience, the content, and most importantly, context of the message. It is essential to take the cultural and social differences in account to deliver the appropriate message to the selected group. Science communication in general may sound very simple, but the nitty-gritty involved in the process of communication with different communities determine the dynamics of the reception and rejection of the proposed idea or technique. Why it is important to have science communication for all the media educators? The teaching pedagogy in terms of science communication needs to be more practical based. Assignments can be introduced to hint them on the different policies and its influence on the society. Teaching communication in Twitter age has given a new perspective and insight into the way people can communicate without being physically present. Can we think of similar communication practices in dealing with science? scientific method of inquiry and scientific culture among the community in terms of sanitation, hygiene and development. As per United Nations Development Programme, there is a strategic drive to bring everyone under one roof with the introduction of 17 Sustainable Development Goals, popularly known as SDGs, hints on integrated, inclusive and sustainable tactic for an overall development. Out of the 17 SDGs goals, the initiative for clean water and sanitation can be considered as the path-breaking goal to achieve scientific temper among the common people. The notion regarding hygiene and sanitation was restricted to the privileged section of the society, whereas the communities who belongs to not so privileged section of the society are primarily responsible for undertaking the jobs to clean the society. For instance, they are known as the manual scavengers. The pertinent question arises here that cleanliness and Swachh Bharat is for whom? Thus, the awareness regarding water sanitation, health and hygiene are meant for everyone living in the society, irrespective of their caste, creed, color and religion. It is irony that we are directed to celebrate a Cleanliness Day, which itself reflects on the status of the poor state of the basic needs for a healthy life. However, the popularization of science and scientific ways of cleanliness may help in generation of development and innovative ways to curb social problems like open defecation, superstitious beliefs regarding menstruation, etc. Reaching to the masses is essential for learning and discovering their problems on indigenous practices. It is essential to promote such campaigns to make people aware of the ill social practices and validate the scientific understanding and reasoning. If you see the goal 6 of the Sustainable Development Goals, the countries of the world have resolved to achieve universal access to safe drinking water and adequate sanitation and hygiene to all in the next 15 years. The statistics show that the overall population of Indian household with access to improved water sources increased from 68% in 1992-1993 to 89.9% in 2015 and 16. By 2030, achieve universal and equitable access to safe and affordable drinking water for all. This is the claim that the Sustainable Development Goals are making to. Support and strengthen the participation of local communities in improving water and sanitation management. Clean water is critical to survival and its absence can impact the health, food security and livelihoods of families across the world. Every year, millions of people, most of the children, die from diseases associated with inadequate water supply, sanitation and hygiene. Under the Millennium Development Goals, the target of reducing the proportion of world's population without sustainable access to safe water was measured by the indicator of the population using improved drinking water sources, but without taking into account the location, availability or quality of the water. In 2015, 5.2 billion people used safely managed drinking water services. That is, they used improved water sources located on premises, available when needed and free from contamination. If we see the statistics, 844 million people do not have clean water according to the WHO UNICEF Joint Monitoring Program report that was published in 2017. 2.3 billion people do not have a decent toilet. 31% of schools do not have clean water. Every minute, a newborn dies from infection caused by the lack of safe water and unclean environment. Diarrhea caused by dirty water and poor toilets kill a child under 5 every 20 minutes. Around the world, up to 443 million school days are lost every year because of water-related illness, that is Human Development Report 2006. So we can understand that it is very important to understand sanitation, hygiene for a better society, for a developed society, and it can only be done with the help of understanding science with the society. Media today has evolved over time in India. There is a constant attempt to use media forms for effective communication which are both inclusive and sustainable in approach. The concept of participatory communication in development field is not essential but is considered as the most effective medium to connect to users of different communities. The approach reflects on the people-centered approach for social change. The existing traditional forms of communication, a strong medium for delivering messages for social, cultural, economic and ecological development. The local communities of different cultural and social background have used and adopted various forms of alternative media. The use of alternative media helps in dissemination of information and create awareness among users on issues related to development. Let us talk about the traditional media traditions and Indian theatre in disseminating science. The tradition of using folk media in India is an old practice. The use of traditional folk forms in communication is found to be a potential source for delivering messages for economic, cultural, social and ecological development. As most of the population belongs to the rural setting, which are traditional and religiously more inclined, discourses through religious preaching are effective and crucial. The oral communication started in India very lately and it was popularized with the help of traditional forms. The purpose and medium of communication have changed with times, but the motto remained the same. Media must educate, entertain, and inform the people. During the British rule, the folk media was used to generate public awareness and nation building. The traditional form of media has remained a powerful tool till today. Even when we talk about digital age, the traditional media is equally effective and far-reaching. A few common forms of traditional media are nukkad natak, puppet shows, etc., which are still popular and high in demand. The history of Indian theatre and its use in transmitting messages to the masses is an old-age practice. Theatre is an ancient aesthetic practice in India. A street theatre is an effective way to attract direct attention of the audience. Theatre, which is a two-way communication medium, which helps in the development of targeted communication specific to local needs. Use of local dialect, folk forms helps in understanding the grassroots problem and sharing the indigenous knowledge. The concept of community media is therefore important for shaping the emerging field of eco-media practice in India. There is a need of eco-cultural dialogues to understand the ground level situations and eco-rise challenges. The idea of conservation may not get adopted by many at the initial stage, but the diffusion of innovation will take place with time and understanding. With the reference to the diffusion of innovation theory as given by Everett Rogers 1962, it can be implied that sustainable innovation will help in understanding ecological stresses and challenges and design a community-centric model. Let us talk about the community architecture, the ecological stresses and the challenges in terms of understanding the way we can use traditional media. Popular traditional media like street plays in Indian society redefines the power of verbal and non-verbal communication in sending the message to the intended audience. This process of communication can be explained with the reference to political scientist Harold D. Leswell's model 1948, who suggested a convenient way to describe an act of communication is to answer the following questions: who, to whom, in which channel, says what, with what effect. For instance, in a street play there are performers who deliver content designed for the audience, preferably local dialect, to make the message clear and acceptable to the receivers. During the process, receivers are not to be considered passive, as they may give their feedback in form of verbal and non-verbal expression to the performers. Hence, this model of communication can develop an effective community architecture which can change ways of community learning. Science communication can promote people's access to knowledge and ability to prepare for meeting ecological stresses and challenges in the ecoregions. Street plays are based on the core concept of democracy for the people, of the people and by the people. The performance is done mostly on an open platform or public areas that highlights the power of space and voice that develops a community architecture. For instance, Bhavna in Assam is a popular traditional theatre form, a theoretical performance on the model set by Srimanta Shankar Deva, mainly based on Sanskrit drama, in raising scientific temper among the practitioners. talking about community architecture, there is a need for its redevelopment to prepare for meeting and discussion on ecological stresses and challenges. Participatory science and technology communication has potential to help scientifically diagnose and facilitate collective pathfinding by stakeholders. It plays a more crucial role when issues demand transdisciplinary exchanges of solutions and learning, like pressing signature problems and stretches of certain ecoregions or sites. Friends, as we have talked about science communication and we have also talked about the use of traditional media in science communication, let us understand another innovative approach in doing science communication in the local areas. And this technique is considered to be one of the innovation in terms of doing practical research. And it is called as CMIT, that is Culture Media in Development Technique, which is very innovative in approach. It aims to create awareness and develop scientific temper and to generate knowledge about water, hygiene and sanitation among the local rural population with an understanding of their cultural beliefs and practices, the social acceptance and the availability of the resources. The most important aspect of the CMID technique is to identify the relation of water and its practices associated with it. The technique covers personal interviews, focus group discussion, questionnaires and documentation of the research problem. The idea is to involve the participants and understand the views on water sanitation and hygiene. The process helps to draw a chronology of the cultural and social acceptance of the current practices and its significance. The collected materials that can be collected from the participants and the documents can be studied separately to design an appropriate media tool to create awareness among the masses about any natural disasters or man-made ecological crisis. The implementation will be successful if the methodology is properly designed and work out. The technique aims to identify few resource persons of the research area who can be the change agents in their villages. With the help of these resource persons, the concept of interpretative capacity building can be interpreted or implemented. It is essential that we understand the community, we understand the media and society, because these are interrelated and interconnected to each other. The social structure has come into existence because of all the factors. So we need to first build a reputation and interpersonal relationship with the locals. It is equally necessary to find out who affects whom, which media tool is best suited for them. What are the other factors involved in the construction of the society and cultural norms formation? It is essential to learn the public and their habits. The research method CMID will play a crucial role in bringing together the elements responsible for the formation of the society and their relation with the water. Public awareness cannot be done with just a media campaign or a science communication campaign. The idea is to first define the public, their needs, problems, challenges and opportunities, and then generate the scientific temper among them. There is a need of unlearning the learned things in a scientific manner. It is required to develop one's interpretative skill to make decisions. No method can work effective if it does not hit the nerve of the society. Once the structure is developed, and then only issues related to hygiene and sustainable development of water resources be promoted. The interpretation part is the crucial of this program, as it will lead to diffusion of innovation in the society, which will again lead to ripple effect, is like an ongoing process and will be responsible for creating awareness, educating masses, monitoring the change and controlling the unwanted elements in the dissemination of the knowledge. The development of the theoretical knowledge will ultimately be used through conventional and non-conventional media, which should be participatory in approach. To do so, there is a need of thorough study and involvement of any researcher whosoever working in the field. The theoretical knowledge will be a backbone of the project, and it will help in designing the CMID technique in the more effective manner. The CMID technique is self-reflexive in nature and approach, and it will be innovative in the field of research. In today's time, science communication has evolved over a longer period of time, and it is stressing on certain health issues, on certain practices that the society must feel about it. The important thing is economic equality, it should be on gender equality, it should be on sustainable consumption, peace and justice, innovation. The need of the hour is to create experiment media for building up a sustainable society. The innovation in the process can help address the social, cultural, geographical and ecological barrier. The idea is not to develop communication for social change, but also the capacity to support, encourage community rehabilitation, ecologically balanced development and lifestyle choices. The communities affected by natural disasters like flood, landslide, heavy rains can show a path of resilience by nurturing and adopting the eco-talents of young difference makers. Youth capacity development initiatives should be developed by media and theatre students for eco-restoration, eco-sanitation and innovation in different eco-regions. India is a country with different culture, tradition and geographical conditions. The mission EcoNext aims to explore eco-media that can raise scientific temper among the users and practitioners for a better and sustainable approach. So friends, in this lecture you have understood that it is important to understand science communication not only as a practice of transferring or generating scientific temper, but it can also become a curriculum in our subjects, in our courses, so that we can teach our students or the learners that it is important to understand the society first, it is important to understand their needs first, and then think of a strategy, think of a research method which can be applied or which can be used to get a better result. For example, the states like Northeast, which is having a lot of geographical constraints, we need to think of a research program or a design that can actually teach them about creating an environment for having a scientific temperament. It is not that the processes or the technology or the practices that they are doing are wrong, but it is important that we give them this insight that science communication can be a change agent in our life. The idea is not to just promote science, but the idea is to bring into this logical and rational understanding why we need to understand science with the society. Any society cannot run without understanding the scientific outcome. It is important that we learn it, we understand it. This lecture intends to give you an overview of how this science communication is moving towards more into a sustainable approach. That's why I'm referring it to as an eco-media rather than just media. And it also sustains in a level where everyone understands it, because we all are practicing this communication every day in our life. The only difference is that we have to physically apply it and then understand the importance of it. For example, the problem of menstruation, I don't call it as a problem, but when there is a situation like that, there are certain norms, there are certain taboos which are associated with menstruation, that one should not be taking bath during those days, one should not be using the same utensils. This kind of superstitious beliefs which are prevalent in our society needs to be understood in a more logical and a scientific way. The recent hearings about Sabrimala has actually given a new insight that we should question the existing practices that are there, why it is there, who has designed these practices. So science communication can be a way in uplifting those who are unprivileged or those who are not getting the benefits of equality or a safe drinking water or a safe life in the society. So, it is very important that we understand science communication into those parameters. There are places in the West like Rajasthan where there are certain communities who are being governed or who are being given any directions from the family itself. The women in the house, they do not have any scope in taking any sort of decisions, even in terms of fetching water from any far place or even taking care during those menstruation period. So, the science communication is one of the way where we can bring the change. This technique of CMID intends to first understand the cultural practices, the cultural beliefs, and within that we should develop a process where we can implement it in a scientific manner. I hope this lecture gives you a understanding of how we can relate science communication with media education in today's time. And it is not that science communication is meant more as a technical subject or a course, but it can be implied in our research methods also. It can be more field based, it can be more ethnographic, it can be more practical oriented research. So, that is where we stand today in understanding the different dynamics of science communication, especially in terms of media education. Thank you.